Hey there, I'm Roben-Marie Smith, and I'm a mixed media artist that firmly believes in leveraging your work to create other things that you can then use to create more. In this video, I'm going to show you how I scan my art, and from that, I then can create collage papers and stickers and all kinds of things, including fabric. This is part one of two parts. In the second video, I'm going to show you how I upload these images into Canva and then create a file that I then upload into a company called Spoonflower to create my printed fabrics. If you have any questions about my scanning process, please just drop them in the comments below. I've also listed the exact scanner that I use in case you're interested in that. All right, let's take a look at my scanner. All right, here is the scanner that I use, and it's a flatbed. It's an Epson Perfection V550 photo, and I'll link to that in the description. I chose this scanner, one, because I already have a printer, so I didn't really need an all-in-one. And in my research, the Epsons were highly rated for artists and for scanning art. And so that's why I chose this one. So let's take a look at what it looks like open, and then I'm going to show you the art that I'm going to scan and kind of how I place it on the flatbed so that you can kind of see exactly what it looks like. All right, here is the scanner bed open. This is the lid here, and then the flatbed. I have put the art on it because it's glass, and there'll be a reflection here of the camera. So this is the art that I'm going to scan. It's a very large piece. It's 24 by 18. It's just a random piece of paper that I scanned in, or that I worked on, that I did art on. This is just really random. I had made some foam stamps and decided just to kind of stamp them onto this paper. I actually liked it and decided to add some watercolor to it. And then the end result was just kind of a grungy piece of paper. But I thought this would make awesome fabric. So that's what I did. So for each one of these, what I'm going to do is because this is so big, and you can see here, the size of this, I believe, it's an A4 size. I think it's like 11 by 8.5, or maybe 11, maybe 12 by 9, 12 by something like that. The bed is. So it's a little larger than an 8.5 by 11. So what I do is I place these pages down, and then I scan them, and then I'll move the page and scan that. And then I just rotate it around, and I just capture the pieces of the design that I really like. And sometimes I have to kind of go in like that, and I just keep moving it around. So probably out of this one, I'll end up with maybe 4 to 6 different parts that will be scanned. Now, the other thing that I like to do, and I'm going to put this paper on here just because of the glare, is I also like to experiment and say, what would happen if I scan some art journal pages? And these are really small, but I can place these down and scan these pages in different groupings. And then once I put it into Canva, I can then manipulate these and create fabric designs that I want to use. I don't create my fabric with a repeat pattern. And I'll show you at the end of the video part 2, where I show how to create the files to upload to Spoonflower, where I have them print my fabric. I'll show you what that looks like. What these look like when they're printed and come back to me. They're not repeat patterns. Like, I wouldn't be able to make a bedspread or big pieces of anything. I strictly am using this service to print fabric, to have parts of it that I can then use to create small things like the zipper pouches that I make. So that's how I see this. Now, the other thing that I do is I always scan the piece at the minimum 600 dots per inch DPI. And I'll show that in the scanner software so that you can see what it looks like. The reason for that, and let me explain. If I scan this in and I only scan it in at 300 dots per inch, then I can only use this image, whatever this image that I scan, I can only use it at the size I scan it. I can't enlarge it, because if I do, it's going to be pixelated. And what that means is it'll be somewhat blurry. So the reason I scanned something like this into my computer at a minimum 600 means that I can double the size of this, because at 300, it can only be used at this size. But at 600 DPI, I can then double it. So then it will become twice this size. So basically, this design will be double that size. Now, I can even scan it in a higher DPI, 1200 if I want. These files will be huge, however, and I use an external hard drive to scan to, because I have a lot of room on those external drives, and that way I don't take up space on my main computer's hard drive. And I'll share with you the hard drive, the external drive that I use. And I think it's either 1 terabyte or 3 terabytes. It's huge. And so I keep everything on that external. So again, I want to scan this at no less than 300 DPI, but my standard procedure is to do it at 600. So I'm going to actually scan one of these journal pages so you can see. And I really want you to think creatively, because there's so many different things you can scan. You're like, well, what could I do with that? Well, you could scan it at 600, make it large, put it on an 8.5 by 11, print it out, and you've got these amazing collage pieces that you can work with. So just use your imagination, think out of the box. And then I'll also be scanning this art paper, this paper that I painted, and then we'll design a layout for that. And then I have a couple of ideas that I'm going to share with you for ways that you can lay these out into the file in Canva to make the most out of being able to print them in Spoonflower. Okay, so if you have any questions on this part, the scanner, let me know in the description or in the comments below, and then I will next show you exactly how I'm going to scan these in. All right, let's take a look at my scanning software. Now, all scanning software is going to be a little bit different. The one that I'm using is called SilverFast. It's for my Epson. And I'm just going to show you where things are, and then I'll show you how I scan. So the few of the things that I utilize, one is the pre-scan, and I've already pre-scanned this image on here, so it is now ready to be scanned. You do that each time, and I'll show you that here in a second. You want to choose the name of your file. So I'm just going to call this Spoonflower Grunge Paper 1. I scan as a JPEG, and this part here, the path, is where it will go when it's scanned. I scan it to the desktop, then I move it over into my external hard drive. As I mentioned earlier, that saves me a lot of space on my computer. And I scan at 600 DPI, or it's DPI, PPI, same thing. Then I go down to these settings down here. And what I'm going to do next here, though, is I'm going to, this is the border here of the last thing I scanned. So I'm going to go ahead and move. This is the guide that shows me exactly what is in the scanning window. And now I'm going to do some tweaking. So if I move this slider to the right, it's going to really wash things out. If I move it to the left, it's going to really darken. So I have to find kind of that sweet spot and where I want it to be. And I just play around with mid-tone contrast and saturation inside the scanning software. You can also do this after the fact inside Canva, but I really like to do it here just to get a nice little a scan with the colors that I'm in the way that I'm looking for. So if I do contrast all the way to the left, it gets really dark, kind of washed out. This is way too much, and so I'm just going to find kind of a happy spot here. And on saturation, same thing. If we go all the way to the left, we remove color all the way to the right. It's really, really kind of painful and dark. So I don't quite want that. But I do want these colors to really pop. So that looks good. And now I'm ready to scan. So it's already got the selections been made. I've already done the tweaking. I know the name, where it's going on my computer, DPI, all the settings. And now I hit scan. So you'll just need to find that in your software where that's located. But you always do a pre-scan first, because anytime you go back to your scanner, whatever was the last thing you scanned is going to show up on the under the pre-scan. So if I were to shut the software down right now and then reopen it again, this is what will appear until I do another pre-scan. So right now the process is going. You'll see it here. You'll see a thumbnail. And because this is a really large file, it's 600, and it's the full size of my bed, which is somewhere around 12 by 9, it's just going to take a little bit of time. And so you should see a progress bar in your software that will show you how much is scanned and where it is. And then once it's completed, it will show you that it's finished. And you won't hear your scanner making the noise of the scanning process. Okay, now our file is finished and it has been completely scanned. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change out and we're going to scan something else. I'm going to go ahead and click on pre-scan, and this is going to scan what is now on the bed of the scanner, and it's the journal pages that I showed you earlier. We're going to go ahead and scan that too. So you can see now it's going to switch from what I had originally pre-scanned and scanned to the new thing that is on the bed of my scanner. Okay, so the new file is there. Now, because this doesn't fit the bed, you can see this right here, this bluish tint, is actually the glass and the inside of the cover. For some reason, it's never white, even though it is white in the cover, but it does kind of illuminate in a bluish color. But I don't want to scan that part, so I'm going to go ahead and take my guide, and I'm going to move my guide to just the portion of my journal pages here that I want to scan. Now, I'm not real happy with this coloring. I think it's a little too yellow, so I'm going to tweak that as well. The other thing I'm going to do is change the name, and I'll just say journal page 1. I'm still going to scan it at 600, and I'm going to modify the mid-tone contrast and the saturation. And so again, I just kind of move these sliders around until I get a coloration that I'm happy with. Now that looks a little better. It's not quite as yellow, and I think that looks good. So it's now ready to be scanned, and it will only now scan this part that is within this range of my selection box. So now that I'm ready, everything is set, I'm just going to click on scan. This is a smaller file size, so it probably won't take as long to scan, but again, you'll see your progress bar and you'll see the process going in the scanning. And again, what I do is I scan to my desktop and then I transfer over, basically just drag and drop the files over onto my external hard drive, which I will link in the description, and then that way I keep these large files off of my main computer hard drive and just put them on the external drive for whenever I need them. And then I do upload them to Canva, and essentially Canva is like a photo storage place for me too. I do have the Pro plan, so I do have folders, and so everything is pretty well organized, but I don't have to research my desktop or research a hard drive to find anything because I've already uploaded them to Canva. And if I need to download them from Canva, I can do that as well and just get the photo that I've scanned pretty quickly. Okay, so now our scanning has completed, and now I want to switch over to my computer and show you those files. Okay, here is the grunge paper that we did first, and it's 13 megabytes, so that's a pretty big file in its size, and you can see here, this is going to show you the dimensions. So the dimensions in pixels, it's 6600 something by 9200, so that's pretty big. And the resolution is 600. It also even shows you the scanner type. So there's some definite information in here that you can look at. Let's take a look at the journal page that we did. This is considerably smaller. It's only under 5 megabytes, and that is because the size is different, right? It's only 2700 and something pixels by 7100, which is quite a bit less than the other one. It's still 600 in its DPI or resolution, but you can see how that file size is definitely smaller in its dimensions, and so therefore it's reflected here. And then I just now, after I do all my scanning and I have them saved where I want them, then I can easily upload them into Canva and then start creating the file that I will use to create all kinds of things, not just fabrics, papers, collage papers, anything. But I'm going to show in part 2 how I do this for fabric. I hope you found this video helpful. If you do have any questions about my scanning process, just drop them in the comments below. I've also listed the exact scanner that I use as well. Now, in part 2, I'm going to show you how I upload these images into software called Canva, and it's a free application that you can use, and then prepare that file to then be uploaded to a third party called Spoonflower, and Spoonflower is the company that I use to print my fabrics. So if you are interested in learning how I do that, click over in the link in this video and in the description, and I'll show you how I do that.